One, check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3. Looks good, looks good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's hit the record button to make sure we got this for ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kinetic Impressions movie review. I'm Arnie Diaz.
And I'm Andrew Davila.
And today we will be reviewing The Mummy, the 1999 action-adventure classic starring Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. The synopsis, as part of the Wikipedia: The Mummy is a 1999 American action-adventure film written and directed by Stephen Sommers. It is a remake of the 1932 film of the same title and stars Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz in the title roles as they reanimate a mummy. The film follows adventurer Rick O'Connell as he travels to Hamunaptra, the city of the dead, with a librarian and her older brother, where they accidentally awaken Imhotep, a cursed high priest from the reign of the pharaohs of Seti from 1290. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so my initial impressions of this movie is it's a 1999 perfect action adventure film from the 90s. It's not a great film. I can't say that it is. I don't think any proper movie critic's going to tell you it's a great movie. It's a great, fantastic film that deserves all the Oscar praise, but it is a damn fun romp. As the story that has been told time and time again, it is obviously the son of the Indiana Jones, of course, but a fun flick that I have fond memories of. Drew, your initial thoughts of this film?
Yeah, man, the Mummy was one of the first true blockbusters that I really remember in life, because it came out. It was one of the ones that the studios pump a lot of money in. Came out May '99, and obviously we've been talking about it. '99 was a great year for films, and this might not have gotten great reviews, to the critics, but man, it's a great fun film. It's a fun family film, and this reminds me of the times when you used to go to movie theaters as a family and be able to watch something and a movie with this title didn't have to be gruesome, didn't have to be bloody. It could just be fun action adventure, just like what you were referencing with the Indiana Jones series. But as we know, death is only the beginning. Death is only the beginning. And that really hits hard with this movie, because obviously this is called The Mummy, and this movie has been remade multiple times. I think this was the third rendition of this movie. Obviously, we have a fourth rendition with Tom Cruise and stuff. The version that came out more recently.
Yeah, that's the one that shall not be referred to.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And that's the thing, though. When these movies come out as remakes, even in '99, people didn't know, people didn't care to go see this, because it's another remake of another remake. It literally was a remake of a remake. So what I'm gonna go watch a film that a studio has put a lot of money behind. And if you had told me back then, I was like, yeah, we're gonna put Brendan Fraser in it, and he is an Egyptian. I'm sorry, and he's not Egyptian, but he's going to Egypt as a French imperialist or whatever the fuck he is. And yeah, we're gonna make Rachel Weisz have some half-blooded Egyptian in her, and she's gonna be the counterpart.
Just for good measure. Just for good measure. Rachel Weisz is gonna have a
white America, right?
Yeah. We're gonna throw a little bit of ethnic inside of the white actress that is in the movie that plays one of the protagonists, just in case. Dude, I love your point about harkening this back to old popcorn movies that you used to go to watch during the summer with your family. This is for sure one of those movies that I remember fondly doing as well. I totally went to go see this with my dad. We saw this movie and then we bought it on DVD and watched it multiple times at home. This was just one of those, just like Independence Day.
Yes.
It's one of those just straight up action adventure. I admit, man, the 90s was a good time for action adventure flicks. There just really hasn't been a lot of really fun, besides, the Marvel movies, for sure. A bunch of those are really fun action adventure.
And that's what it's been replaced. I love that you brought that up, because that's what it's been replaced with now, is those Marvel movies where families can go and see some kind of, and we're going to have to get back to some sort of normal that was like the Mummy movies, because what are, families going to go do without, a Marvel movie coming out every summer or a Star Wars film coming out every summer that's like already getting exhausting. We need more films like this, and I feel like the whole Netflix thing, bad movies, and we make this point all the time. Bad movies are no longer going to be released in movie theaters. Studios are going to want to control what goes out over there. So
For sure, 100%. And the movie theater, I mean, we're in an interesting spot with movies. It's changing and morphing, and it feels like every day there's a new development coming up, for sure. But this, for sure, reminds us of what the high point and what, like, the really, like, I guess yeah, it's like the high point in the movie going experience, right? This reminds you of that time, of that history where, like, it was like every month there was this one movie we're all gonna go watch. We're gonna spend the money, splurge. We're gonna wait in the line. This is before even like assigned seating, where like you had to get to the movie theater early to get a good seat. Otherwise, you were like, I remember like I may have even seen like I remember like that was the era we all actually went to the midnight screenings. When movies before they were released were actually at 7:00 now. You actually like got there like at 9:00 to get to the movie to make sure we got a good spot on opening night.
And this is exactly right. This is right before the time when we got some I'm sorry, excuse me, but like we got some good movies coming out, man. We had, I remember watching the Matrix, all the Matrix Reloaded
Matrix
and Revolutions at the midnight showings. I remember watching Lord of the Rings during the midnight showings.
I have to say,
all the early Star Wars.
The Matrix specifically, one of the best movie going experiences I ever had in my entire life. It was the first time, and probably the only time. Maybe there's one other time that there was a literal standing ovation at the end of that movie, and I watched it it was like a week after it came out, and it was like the 10:00 screening after me, my brothers, and my dad had all already watched another movie. We just decided to make a whole day of it, and then we just went into the late screening of The Matrix, dude. It was packed to the brim, and at the end of it, after Neo flies, everyone just fucking got up and just clapped, dude. It was incredible.
That's something I miss, Arnie. That's something I really miss is the random guy who's gonna start clapping and really get excited for the hero, because I love that. I mean, the last time we've had that was obviously for. It still felt awkward though. It felt like it was something being brought back, but it was for the Avengers movie. Endgame. Whenever when like obviously that moment where. Cap gets a reading in his ear, and he's like, and it's somebody who's been gone.
Yes.
And then you start seeing, you start seeing the circles pop up, and that was to me, that's the last standing ovation moment in a movie that we've seen for a while. But I really miss those moments. Were the best times to see those kind of things.
For sure, man. And like I wanted to watch this movie because like I knew it tickled that nostalgia feeling in the back of my head, but I forgot how fucking fun it was. I looked up the Siskel and Ebert review of this movie, and the first thing he says straight off the bat, I can't say this is a good movie, but I had a good time and it's fun, right? And that's definitely what I think the initial thoughts of the movie are. Right?
Oh, I mean, like I shared with you earlier that like that the one that made me laugh out loud, the review that I read was just like a one-liner that said, "This is the only Mummy film I will acknowledge until I see something else that gives me the same film feels."
Yeah.
And I just thought that was hilarious. And Mummy was spelled wrong. It was spelled like mommy. So I was just like, I don't know. I don't even know if this is the film they're talking about. But it really did hit home for me, because I think that's true. I'm like, I don't ever want to go. And that's why we discount the Tom Cruise one, man. It's because we will never say there was another Mummy film.
No,
after Brendan Fraser did
the execution of this film is just on all cylinders. Is fucking. It's fun. It's dumb. I have to say, just to mention, I think the latest movie that has actually made me feel as fun as this movie is in this kind of same vein, I gotta say, the new Jumanji with The Rock in it.
Really?
A really fun movie, a really fun action adventure film. Absolutely.
I gotta watch that.
It's so good. All right, so kind of just dive in a little bit to the subjects at hand. Let's talk about the story at first, right? So, kind of my initial thoughts on the story was that this is a rehashed story with the same archetypes, right? Like I mentioned the Indiana Jones thing, and that like this movie, I actually watched the CinemaSins thing about this, and they explained that
Yeah.
like this movie is actually just like the Indiana Jones movies, but actually the Indiana Jones movies were also based off of old television serials, and then those television serials were also developed on top of old, or were inspired by old radio dramas, which were inspired by old pulp
That's
books
interesting.
and novels, right? And I've read Clive Cussler books. I love the Clive Cussler Dirty
Yeah.
Pit books, and this is just straight out of those pages, a very like well-paced action adventure novel. And the amount of like small story that this filmmaker that Stephen Sommers gets into this movie is pretty staggering. This is a long movie. Like it's almost 2.5 hours long, and before we even get to the Mummy, it's almost an hour long, right? And it's
Yeah.
but it's still fun because like the story itself is just all of these characters who we've known before coming together, just like the swashbuckling anti-hero, the damsel in distress, the fool, the menacing, villain of this movie. The fact that like all of those archetypes, yes, but the actual performance from the actors elevate the story because they are chewing scenery all of the time.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, and they are overplaying this, and this is for the most part. I mean, besides the two main stars, these are a lot of down the list actors. I mean, these aren't there's not that many famous cameos that appear in this movie to me, especially for this time period. But I had never heard of him, before this. But like Arnold Vosloo, who plays in Huptu, in Hubtep. I can
Imhotep.
never say it.
Imhotep.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for helping me with that. Imhotep is how I was is what I was trying to say. He's one of the scariest villains. And he does it, he plays it so well just immediately from the beginning. And like if my camera wasn't set up, honestly, actually, I would give a standing ovation to Patricia Velasquez, who's one of the hottest Egyptian girls I've ever seen in my life. Oh my god, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, that first
the
scene.
girl in that first scene.
Yeah.
I just get up and stand up like
Yeah.
praise the Lululemon gods. You know about the Lululemon gods. But Arnold Vosloo is like one of the scariest people I've seen since, like, as a child I was introduced to Voldemort. Like he is just really scary. And I wanted to tell you, like, it's just so funny that in this movie he's also referred to as he who shall not be named. And like I thought, I was like, oh shit, this guy is OG Voldemort.
She may have gotten the idea of that from this film. Honestly, like it could be one
for
of those.
real, because he was bald. He kind of had that. His jaw dropped a lot in this movie.
Dude.
Like I feel bad for his jaw.
Oh my god,
like, it was just always like open.
CGI open, regular open, always open, dude. And
I know.
And in the Harry Potter books and films, he does a lot of Emotep stuff. Like he does the big face clouds, like these are Voldemort's powers coming back from the dead.
You're right, man.
Fighting
So,
the
like,
Horcruxes.
we have-
Oh, dude! Or actually the white dudes who opened up the tomb to bro.
I love that we're blowing even our own minds in this fucking review right now.
Dude, did J.K. Rowling, or however the hell you say her name, take like all of the powers in everything?
I'm Googling it right now. Did J.K. Rowling watch The Mummy?
Yeah, like this is all the tomb thing, like because Harry Potter arguably is like seven. Well, I don't know how many is like a six book series, 4 book series. I don't know how many fucking long book series. Just a kid going tomb raiding. It's just it's a teenage tomb raiding movie. That's amazing, bro. Like seriously, all the powers Emotep have are the exact same things that he does, down to the Horcruxes. Dude, down to the Horcruxes.
You're right, man. Down to everything. I mean, like, it is all the same powers. That's great.
Anyway,
That's so great.
It is absolutely fantastic. Kind of back to the story a little bit. I do want to talk about, like, it's interesting how these stories, there's history to these stories, right? And it's all really about American imperialism. Not American imperialism, sorry, not American. It's about colonialism, right? It's about colonialism, and it's about, like, these men that go across the world to some exotic lands to find treasure, right? And this film is just like biting into those tropes 100% throughout the entire time. But it's a fun telling, right? And it doesn't matter because it kind of wears that on its sleeve, right? It just wears the fact of what kind of film it is, and it just delivers you into that world, and you just kind of take it. And that's kind of where I'm at with the story, man. I think Stephen Sommers, he only directs the movies that he writes, and I think the story that he wrote was perfect for the directing that he gave. It was really nicely well hand in hand. And I think that there are moments that are really well played. I think the transitions help to establish the story as well. There are some beautiful transitions and moments that help the story out here. That I think the directing and the storytelling just really melded together really well, and it kind of really helps to elevate the movie to a more entertaining way for the audience to take in. Right?
I mean, yeah. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
please go ahead.
I think I had a little bit of a delay. But no, I was just gonna say, like, I think you're absolutely right with that, man. Like, the pacing is so well paced by him, and you can tell, like, it is that combination of a written and directed film, and I think that's what helps it so much. Is like, I mean, I know, like, just that opening, the opening scene with the pharaoh, like stabbing the pharaoh, and that happens like it feels like in 30 seconds, like it happens so quick. We get that we get that intro, like a lot of story happens. We already get like my irrational fear of tumbling bookcases in the library, which I was just like, man, this movie's already scary with all the bookcases. Sure. That's one of my irrational fears. Anytime I go into the library, I actually don't go into libraries because of that reason. But like, and then like the first 30 minutes, man, Brendan Fraser he gets into like 3 death traps. And you're right. We haven't even gotten to the mummy yet. We haven't even gotten to where the mummy is by the time. I mean, like we are in the very beginning, but like this guy's gotten in so much trouble, and Rachel Weisz actually saves him twice, 2 of those times, once in the boat and then once later on. And I'm like, or once in the boat and then once in the prison. Yeah. And there's just, and that happens, I don't even want to say 30 minutes. It's like almost 20 minutes.
Yeah, and then there's like 40 minutes
so
before
much
you
happens.
get to the mummy. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so much story plot once they actually get there. And I'm like, dude, dig this thing open already. Y'all know y'all fucking up.
Yeah. Let's move on to the character work here, man, because I think this is like, I think together the character work and the direction is just the shining star of this movie. Because I think the characters, Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz. I also want to give a special shout out to John Hannah. He plays Rachel Weisz's brother. Funny guy. And also just the sheer amount of character actors in this movie, that these are all day players that you've seen in movies before that really haven't had any time to shine. Like you were saying, Eric Avier, who plays Dr. Terrence Bay, who is the doctor in the library, who's the boss of Rachel Weisz's character. I think this is probably his best role, because the amount of lines that he has as opposed to any other movies is staggering to me. But I think they all choose scenery and really dive into the characters. They're funny. The chemistry is there, and there's just no denying how much all these people had a great time on set. And
you never fall in love with Benny. You hate him the whole movie. I love how consistent he's the comedic relief.
He has an arc.
Oh, go ahead. What?
He has an arc too. Like,
Yeah, he definitely has an
Yeah.
arc. He has like a good arc, and like, and I love every single time that they repeat the quote. It's like Benny's gonna get his. Oh,
Yeah.
Benny, he's gonna get his.
Go get it.
And it's not too much either, because you would feel like with the brother, with Kevin J. O'Connor, who you just mentioned, and Benny, I feel like we would have gotten like too much comedic relief in the, because they were very similar like comedic relief roles, but they're perfect. They're perfect for each other. I love the funny bad guy, which I feel like we don't see unless it's a Disney
Yeah.
movie,
It's
like
like
a cartoon. I
yeah.
like the funny bad guy. It's a really good concept, and we lose it a lot. It's something like that we learned from the hyenas, from the Power Rangers. Like, it's something iconic that we don't really see much nowadays.
It's like Igor, right? He's like the Igor to the mummy.
Yeah.
He's like yeah, it's just like and I do like his and her brother, who's the bubbling idiot slash sidekick character as well, which you don't get much, but in these kind of movies, he's like Vince Vaughn and Sahara, like those like
Yeah.
side characters, and like this, and like in the story really gives all these characters a moment and a moment to breathe, which again is like another testament to the directing. It is just, he puts so much work into each character and each moment. It's kind of staggering. But like back to the character stuff, like I think that like Brendan Fraser, just like, look at him. He's just like he's a good looking dude. He plays into this perfect role of the swashbuckling asshole anti-hero. Yes, he doesn't ask for consent to kiss the girl, but it's the kind of movie it is. As well, Rachel Weisz playing the smart, intelligent damsel in distress definitely brings a lot to the role as well. I love that they actually like give all of these people real Egyptian lines to speak, giving them a little bit more scene to chew as well. The Magi as a concept are really cool, right? They don't really do much. They actually kind of just watch everyone do everything until like the very last minute. But like I just think that everyone just works really well together, and like the character work definitely helps elevate the humor, the pacing of the story, and just the fun that this movie has. Shout out to Winston, the one guy the plane guy who was in the movie for literally 6 minutes. I mean, this is how fast this guy moves with character development. He literally introduces this character in some like shady off in the corner stretch of the desert. Brendan Fraser explains to him, we're just gonna beat the bad guy, save the damsel in distress, and save the world. And he just goes, yeah, let's do it. And then 3 minutes later, he's dead. But you feel for him. I felt for him. And I felt
Did I miss something? I thought he was in the beginning. He like
He was
leaves.
in a moment. He meets up with O'Connell at a bar.
No. Even before that, I thought he was at the fight. At the fight with the French versus the horse people.
Yeah,
The-
yeah. He was even before that. Yeah, he was there.
Yeah. I feel like he was there for a second. He gets introduced.
Like,
You don't.
He
I
literally
don't think
gets a
he
line.
even
He
like.
gets 2 lines. Yeah.
He gets one line. Yeah, but I'm just gonna speak about characters for a second. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll get back to that. But like, yeah, dude, Brendan Fraser, like it, like I said earlier, if you told me that you were gonna put a whole bunch of money on an Egyptian movie with Brendan Fraser as the head, like I would have just. I'd still be laughing. Like from 1999 to now, I'll be like, remember that joke you said about Brendan Fraser? Yeah, I'd still be laughing about it. And I think he does an awesome. He's a great badass because you love him the whole time. He's so warm, and like from all his other characters, like you still love how humble he is, but him trying to be a badass is just so fun to watch.
Yeah.
And he really like. It honestly makes me feel like I know this guy's not a badass, but he really loves Rachel Weisz. So I'm gonna play along with it. It's such a great. I don't know. I think I love their two chemistry together, and then the character actors, like you say, man, it builds everything. Like, John Hannah. I'm sorry. Earlier when I said Kevin J. O'Connor, that's actually who plays Benny. And then the villain Arnold Vosloo, it goes all the way down the list, that we were talking about, where even I think his name's Ardeth Bay. He's played by Odin Fair, like that guy with the tattoos under
Yeah,
his
yeah,
eyes.
yeah. Part of the
I
mad
mean,
guy.
that guy's a badass guy, man. Like he's a badass the whole time. He's like, should we kill Brendan Fraser? Nah, man. The desert's gonna kill him. And it was like, and then like as the next time, his next line, damn, that's a strong motherfucker. like, like, like he's coming up, he's like he sees Brendan Fraser, he's on the cliff, he sees Brendan Fraser coming back, and he's like, damn, that guy's strong. And I'm just like, what a great line. I'm like, it sounded so much more badass in whatever Farsi that he's talking.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, and then like we get back to like all these little actors, and then you get back to like the warden. Warden dies. I'm like, nobody even cares. I'm like, dude, has anybody seen the warden? I'm like, nah, man, he's been dead. And you kind of like him. I liked him a little bit. And then we get all the way to Captain Winston, who like, you see him for 3 frames in the beginning.
Yeah,
like maybe
it's not even. Yeah.
Maybe 3 frames of the film, and then you see him again, where like they run into a bar again, and then he comes back and he's like, hey man, you want to save some people? And he's like, sure, let's go. And then he just dies. And it just we don't even get to see like the last breath. You always hope that you get the last breath.
He may not even be dead.
That moment is so awkward too, because like Imhotep is like over there with his jaw dropped, like he is all the time. He's causing the biggest sandstorm anyone's ever seen, and Rachel Weisz is like, I'm gonna see what kissing him does. Let's see if I can kiss him real quick, distract him a little bit. And I'm like, man, what a hoe thing to do. But great, like great vision there. You save 2 out of 3 of them, or 3 out of 4 of them. So
yeah, why not? I think even down to like those other adventurer guys that Benny was tracking over to Hamunaptra, even those guys had moments. Like the one guy lost his eyes. I felt bad for him. I felt bad for him. And then his death scene was one of the best death scenes. Like when like the dust goes in the silhouette, just like he like sucks out his life force, like it's like he's an apple, was really cool. And then each of them has like a cool death scene as well. There's just so much. I think that's a perfect segue into the direction of this movie. Which,
real quick, like I do want to go into directing right after this, but like how unlucky were they to be like to get on the boat and say, wait, y'all going to the same place we're going? And then like they're obviously like shitty Americans. Like they talk about them so craftily, these dumb Americans, until the shooting starts. When the shooting starts, they're like, I'm glad we're with these Americans.
Yeah.
these guys love to shoot. But yeah.
I wanted to talk about, of course, the directing is part for like one of the main reasons this movie excels at being fun is just the way, like I do have to preface, Stephen Sommers did also write this movie, which makes perfect sense because of the nuance that is brought into every scene of this movie. That's where his directing really fucking shines. It is the nuance that is brought into every scene that is elevated by the character and the fucking production design. The sheer amount of like production design in this movie is staggering. I mentioned during the pre-stuff that like this was before CGI took over. So like to be able to manage such a production on top of writing this movie and then on top of directing the actors in this movie is a gigantic feat that only like 90s directors can do. You know what I mean? To do these kind of movies. And he, in this movie, I think, aside from the fact that this is not Schindler's List, this is not one of those Oscar contending movies, of course. This is a feat of just straight popcorn filmmaking. And his director is the through line that puts it all together. Obviously, the reason the fact that he wrote it, you feel it because he understands the nuance that needs to be brought into every single frame. From from the like you said earlier about like the introduction to Emotep, that first scene is so well executed that you barely need any of the dialogue. But of course, he brings in the narration that tells you about what's happening. But that whole scene is fun. It's like well paced and it moves the story along. And then it gets into the point of this film where you meet all the main characters and all of their introductions have like really good slapstick moments, and then all the characters have really good chemistry to a point where you actually forget that you don't even see the mummy, or you don't even get into supernatural stuff really until an entire hour into the movie. And then when you hit the mummy, it just kind of goes to this next level, and it just keeps going and going and going until the finale. So I think overall the directing is probably the highest point of this film, and it really brings the aspect of how fun it is out. I think Stephen Sommers, honestly, I'm going to say this is, I haven't seen a lot of his older movies in a while, but I got to say this is probably my favorite one of his movies. Because we have seen pretty much all of his movies. Like, Stephen Sommers is not a Steven Spielberg name, but he is definitely a guy who has been around, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you mentioned earlier the Jungle Book movie, that the Jungle Book, Kipling. I always call it Kipling's Jungle Book because it's not to be confused with the Jungle Book with like the bear follows the little kid. I always loved the real life version. I had that tape as a child, and I remember it almost like burned in my little my race car tape rewinder. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know
Arnie?
exactly what you're talking about. Yes, I do.
Yeah, man, I had one of those race car rewinders, and I watched it so much at my grandmother's house that it set on fire because I used to love that movie.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's scary. It hits all the same points to the reason why I love this Mummy movie. And fun fact, did you know in that Jungle Book that Lena Headey is the main romance
What?
in that Jungle Book?
Man.
She is the young white girl love interest.
Wow. She goes back.
Just to blow your
dude.
mind a little bit.
She goes back, bro.
Yeah, man. And so like from that movie to this Mummy series, which I love rewatching. I was one of the few people to go watch G.I. Joe Rise of the Cobra.
Yeah. I think I watched it too.
Unpopular opinion, I get it, but damn, that was a good movie. That was still a good movie. It was a good movie a decade later after The Mummy when those films didn't really work out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
we had been over the phase. 2009, 2008 is when like we really started liking Academy Awards instead. Like the whole movie industry kind of grew up in a way.
Yeah.
And like you couldn't get away during that decade. You couldn't get away with just like throwing another Jurassic Park out. You had to do some work for it. And like that G.I. Joe movie was great. And like, especially like to have Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Leo Howard, there's some great characters in that. And that was another one where I really liked it. And to your point, man, I really think it's this directing written combo that he has. And he got a lot of flack. He got a lot of crap for making an all-white Mummy movie like that we've been saying.
It's funny.
And what was it? 2 years? How many years did it take for him to write? What?
I'm not sure.
Sorry, this one came out in 99, right?
Yeah, this one came out in 99, yes.
Yeah, so from 99, it took him 3 years after getting all the crap for this movie to make a minority cast of this movie and call it the Scorpion King. So we have to thank him. We have to thank him for giving us Chris the Rock Johnson. I'm sorry, Dwayne the Rock Johnson?
Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
I don't know why
you just messed up the Rock's name, dude.
Yeah. But we should still thank Sommers. I don't know how. Sorry, man. I was thinking about my friend Chris, I guess. But yeah, we have to thank him for giving us Dwayne the Rock Johnson, because Dwayne really came out during that Scorpion King movie when he was just this buff badass who like twirled his hair and kicked people's asses.
That was his first real like fucking film.
Like and you were scared. Like
Yeah.
you were scared of this guy, and you really thought he was just gonna be like this buff dude that doesn't get that many movies. Like, and now he's a comedic genius.
Oh, he's the
So
most
it's
paid.
great.
He's the most powerful actor in Hollywood right now. He
Yeah.
is it. There's a mountain right now of Hollywood stars. He is at the very tippity top. And Steven Sommers is definitely one of those like directors from the old school that brought him in back in those times. Yeah, man. There's just like there isn't anything like a good 90s action film, and Steven Sommers is definitely from that vein. And I think one of the biggest things about G.I. Joe Rise of the Cobra that is interesting, like that is a very CGI heavy film,
It was, yeah.
right? So that's definitely...
This was not.
Yeah, this was not. And that's one of the things, I think it's a good time for us to move into production design, because I think this all kind of falls in line here. It is an important thing to state the sheer amount of production that went into this film. It is all on screen. It is part of the reason why I think this film still holds up, is because a lot of this production design is on the screen. You can see it. It is physical. And these actors, I think their performances is elevated because of the production design. I think it's difficult for actors to act in front of a green screen only the whole time, the entire time.
Yes.
To act in front of a tennis ball the whole time. You know, I think it brings something to the film and the performance for you to be in these tombs.
And we have to give credit to those type of directors too that live in that life. We have to love Steven Spielberg. Peter Jackson is one that comes to mind that Peter Jackson probably spends he has an hour count of how long he's been in just a green void of a room.
Yeah.
With people with with those like CGI bodysuits where it has just like balls all over it instead, and like the dude just has like a head mask with just balls on it, just
or like a head mask, but then like the head is like the tennis ball protruding like 3 feet above his head, right? So they gotta stare at the tennis ball instead of like looking at the guy. Yeah.
Yeah, like all the Gollum things that we've always seen too. Like
For sure.
Yeah, like you got to give credit to those guys who live in those CGI jobs. But yes, this movie is beautiful in that you really get to experience the sand of this movie. And that's what it is. It's like, no, we're gonna go to Cairo. We're gonna have these beautiful sunsets. We're gonna look at this beautiful Egyptian city. We probably have to CGI some pyramids and some old pharaoh stuff, but it's gonna look great.
Yes.
And then we're gonna just play this. We're gonna play this old timey, and we're gonna keep it classic. And he does a great job. All the actors really overplay that, just like you keep saying, man. When the characters, they overplay this, but they do. I think they do. They have a better. Oh man, I just lost the word that I was going to use. They just have like a better presence because they're in this honest, like they're in a Sahara desert as opposed to in a studio.
They were literally in Morocco. They filmed this shit in Morocco. And they were, and the sets are incredible and intricate, well beyond things that we would do in like high budget movies now, honestly, unless you have a director who's willing to do, like I think JJ actually learned a lesson from the original Star Wars Force Awakens that he did and decided to do a lot of practical effects, right? He made that a point to be a thing. And I think for his follow-up, the last one he did, he made sure that practical effects were a part of it. Because that really, I feel like it really does, in a lot of ways, elevate the movie, but also elevates the performances, right? And
it elevates a lot of things because like actually having these like zombies who are like you paid some people and you actually made them in makeup, and they're not really zombies, but like you have to. They have some mind control things in this movie going on, and like having those real people instead of CGI people helps a lot. Having like I think one of the biggest moments is that sandstorm, right?
Yeah.
That sandstorm is a great sandstorm.
Yeah.
It's big, it's overwhelming. You don't need much to do what this movie needed to do with its practical effects. And I thought it was beautifully done. I didn't like because this movie was so real, the whole concept of this magical city only appearing during sunrise. What like, I had that joke about it earlier, but like, to tell me what did you think about that? Like, that wasn't that like just such a random snowball in this whole thing? Like,
Yeah,
everything just seemed really legit. They were going somewhere on a boat. Uh, I told you, like, I made that joke earlier, even where it was like Brandon Fraser's like, leave the map. The map, I have it up here.
yeah,
I'm
I'm the
like,
map. I'm the
no,
map.
no, no one says that. But like, no one says that. I was like, what's up with the city just appearing because of the sunset? Like,
For
we don't need
sure.
anything.
And then all those like really weird CG pyramid scenes that were, it was like, so CG was definitely an accoutrement, right? An add-on in this
Yeah.
film, right? It wasn't the whole enchilada, which, I think worked. Obviously the CG is dated, it's got, it's pixelated, but you could see where the technology was going. I actually really liked the character design of the mummy right at the beginning. You could tell that the shadows and the textures were a little off, but it was still pretty believable as even a '90s CG fucking mummy and stuff like that. But kudos to all of the production design and everything. I just think like this movie was just firing on all cylinders for me. And
It holds up. It
yeah,
holds up. And like, you can't say that. Like, 10 years later, they made a Wolverine movie that if you watch it right now, you can see every moment that's CGI'd because it didn't hold up.
yeah, for sure, for sure, definitely. The production design is one of the reasons I think the performances are great, and I think is one of the main reasons this movie holds up so well.
And can we give a round of applause? Can we give a round of applause to Jerry Goldsmith? He does an amazing job with the score of this film.
Yeah,
And and all that pacing that we've just talked about, all that character stuff, it does not go unnoticed that Jerry Goldsmith was amazing at his job at keeping us in the movie with his score, and the music was done phenomenally. You as a production person myself, you are you always thank the critic when you're unnoticed, because if they don't notice that means you did a good job in production. But what I love is, and I always reference this, is like, those Christopher Nolan scores that build you up with the film. But then you have those kind, but then you have, I forget the director that I always mention, but you have like somebody like this movie that you can't remember what the song was, but you remember it helped inflict your emotions where they needed to go because the score was so well done.
for sure. No, kudos to that for sure. The score is one of the biggest. Yeah, it is. It is a really good score, and it kind of goes to show you that like that's one of the reasons this movie just feels the way it does, because it does have all these elements of score and scale and really good story that just moves. That's just really a delight. It's just a delight. It's just like this movie makes action adventure look easy to do.
Yeah.
I think that's it for the main topics I want to talk about. Sure. I did want to
Oh
bring
yeah,
up
man.
some kind of side stuff that I actually saw, which was pretty funny. So looking up the original Siskel and Ebert um, uh, review of this, he mentioned this. So he had
Wait.
Siskel was
What
not
was
there.
the before you? Sorry, man. Before you mention that, what was his rating? Does he give a rating
No,
in
thumbs
these?
up, thumbs down, right?
Yeah.
Remember,
So
two thumbs
what,
up. It was two thumbs up, but like the guys were both like,
really?
I think so. I forget. I forget.
No, 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 no. Like, I was surprised. I just wanted to know. I kind of wanted to know what it was before you told us. But go ahead. Sorry to interrupt,
Honestly,
man.
I don't think he did give like a rating. He didn't even give like a thumbs up or anything. He just kind of like ended the interview. He just kind of mentioned some points of it. This might have been before the thumbs up thing too. It was really old.
Oh, okay.
He said so Ebert didn't say this, but the guy who was on the show who was not Siskel, I think Siskel was sick or something during this time, so he had a guy
Right.
from Newsweek on.
Yeah.
He mentioned that again, not a fantastic film, but a really enjoyable film. But also he wanted to mention, and I only mentioned this because he mentioned it, and I wasn't gonna mention it, but like if somebody mentioned this back then when this was being reviewed, it needs to be stated too. He says that the Arab bashing of this movie is unforgivable. Right?
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty true, man. They're depicted as like really bad, like guys who spit, just dirty dirty people. And then Ebert goes on to say, you know what, you're right. It seems to be those people and Nazis who are Hollywood's thing to make fun of or to like to talk down to. Which is really, something really interesting to pull up. I just thought was funny. Also, I looked up the CinemaSins guys. CinemaSins also on YouTube. They do these series of videos where they look up the bad things that every movie has done, and they do like a ticker and they collect it down. They mentioned two things that are really interesting. Apparently, Imhotep was real. Imhotep was a real priest who actually was kind of a revered guy, not a bad guy. He apparently made some incredible discoveries. He made some incredible medical discoveries, and was also a very innovative architect as well. Also, Anuk-Sunamun was a real person as well, but she was born 1,000 years after Imhotep. And also, why did the pharaoh want to give Imhotep superpowers, right? Because it's like,
yeah,
just like
can we calm down? Can you think about the future?
Yeah.
Like, why do you got to give these guys superpowers, man?
Yeah. They also mentioned how like they made Imhotep into like the worst Green Apron apocalypse delivery ever by putting his vases and the Book of the Dead right next to him for the future generations to have to deal with.
Just because I looked it up. Well, first thing, I just looked this up because I was intrigued about the whole Jerry Goldsmith idea. Jerry Goldsmith has 256 credits under composer for movies.
Good God.
On IMDb. I just wanted to like this guy is a legend, and his latest movie that isn't a short is comes from 2004, which is he did all the Star Trek movies,
Wow.
before JJ Abrams took over them. So he his last film is the Final Darkness. Star Trek: The Final Darkness, sorry, is what I meant to say. And but he did Nemesis, Star Trek Nemesis, wow, Incident at Beta 9. He did all those types of movies.
First Tom Hardy
he also
movie.
did what?
That was the first Tom Hardy movie.
Yeah.
Star Trek Nemesis, yeah.
And then he did The Sum of All Fears, Along Came a Spider in the 2000s. He did Hollow Man, The Haunting, The Mummy, like we just talked about, Mulan in 1998.
What? He did Mulan
this guy.
98? What? Okay.
Air Force One, LA Confidential. In the 90s, this guy was a rock star. Deep Rising, U.S. Marshals, Chain Reaction.
U.S. Marshals is a good movie.
Yeah, dude, this list goes on. I think I saw that he did one of the Rambo movies too. Total Recall. I know we were talking about that the other day.
Total Recall.
But yeah, this guy is a legend, and so we got to give this guy credit when credit is due. Yeah, he did First Blood Part 2 and First Blood of the Rambo movie, which is insane. And then another thing I wanted to mention was just one of Rachel Weisz's one of my favorite quotes in this movie is when she's just the plain old drunk girl and says, "What is a place like me doing in a girl like this?" This girl was cute this whole entire movie, and it just sucks she wasn't an actual minority in any way. But,
no, she had a little Egyptian in her. She was a little Egyptian.
Yeah. Oh man, the veil scene where she shows up in that veil because she's lost all her clothes. It's a hot scene.
Yeah. Also very inappropriate. In that
yes.
she was trying to blend in the most non-way possible.
Yep. Yeah, it was very offensive.
Yes.
But I think we did it, man. I love that. This was great. This was a great movie to do. Well, what are your thoughts? We should think about what we're going to do next, but on to the next week. We're probably going to do a good movie news. I'm excited about movie news next week.
Yes, movie news next week for sure. There's some developments. There's some movies coming out, some other stuff, some good stuff. Also some bad stuff, some real bad stuff. We're gonna do a little update on the movie industry as a whole. It's not looking great. But, it is what it is. At the end of the day, just watch a movie, man. Just watch movies.
Yeah, I feel like movie news is going to be like this film. It's really bad, but fun to watch.
Fun to watch. Hell yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
That was good.
Thank you very much. I'm Arnie. This guy is
Andrew.
We are Kinetic Impressions. Please follow us. Please look for us on all of the podcasting platforms known to man on Kinetic Impressions. I also have a podcast called Arnie Diaz. You may look for it under the Arnie Diaz Show. Thank you very much.
Yeah.